Welcome to the Small Business Technology Podcast, where we educate lawyers, accountants, and small business owners on technology that can help streamline, protect, and grow their business.
I'd like to welcome the listeners to our first technology podcast for small business. I'm Mark and this is Karim, and we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about cloud computing and what that means. Cloud technology is a term that's been widely used. There's a lot of different iterations to it, and I think it'd be helpful to bring a little clarity to that for small businesses out there. There's some opportunities for them to understand how they can leverage the technology for efficiencies and their operation. And I'd really like to just kind of start by asking you, Karim, to help people understand, our listeners, just tell them what the cloud is. What is a cloud?
Yeah, that's absolutely a good question. And I feel like I understand the cloud very well. And I feel that when I speak to people, they really are, they really don't understand what the cloud is. It's a very broad concept. And I think it's important to clarify for, especially as a business owner, what the cloud is. So the cloud is really an abstract concept, really. It's not something too specific. And I think the main characteristics that compose the cloud or that define the cloud is, number one, it is something that is designed where your information is accessible from anywhere. So the accessibility of information, wherever you are on the globe, you should be able to get to it. You should be able to get to it relatively quickly. And it's always there without worrying about hardware or technical issues. The second thing that defines the cloud is that usually it's something that scales with you, right? It scales, if you're a company, and considering the cloud, you may have different number of employees. You could be growing over time. You could have your data could be going up and down. So you only pay for generally what you use, and you don't have to again worry about the technical things of hardware or buying hardware or any of that stuff. So it relieves you of this hardware. And I think the most common cloud that people are used to is probably iCloud. They've heard of iCloud. Like whenever I'm talking casually with somebody and they're asking me, hey, what do you do? When I mention the word cloud, and they're like, oh, like iCloud? And I say, yes, kind of like iCloud, because the idea of iCloud is exactly what it is. It's you have data, photos, stuff on your phone, and then the cloud allows you to detach completely from the phone. So you could enable the iCloud, you could throw your phone away, get another phone, you still get access to your data. And that's the beauty of it, right? It's the accessibility of the information. And oftentimes cloud is also associated with a service, right? So you have a service that generally you're paying for that enables those benefits. So usually it's a service that you pay for that gives you the quick accessibility to your information. So that is pretty much how I would kind of...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I understand. I understand. I think that was helpful just to kind of help people understand the basics behind it. So you mentioned the iCloud. That's kind of like a personal cloud. Why do clouds make sense for small businesses? Why are so many companies moving into the cloud right now?
Very good question. And I think some people are beginning to see that in general from talking to people, and some are still having a hard time understanding why a cloud is important for business. So cloud has kind of, like you said, iCloud is a personal thing, and you have business cloud. Even in the business clouds, there are many different things. So the reason they're moving more and more into it is because, first of all, I think what would help is if we understand how a traditional company works. A traditional company with a few employees, or a small business with a few employees, maybe a law firm or an accounting firm, generally what they do, or the traditional thing to do, was bring everybody to the office. Everybody has their workstations and everybody's accessing, for example, everything from a server that the business owner buys, and they dedicate a room for, and they put everything in that room. And they enable all the employees to access that information. So the benefits of the cloud is, number one, you don't have to deal with the hardware, because hardware is a liability. You need space for it. You need to purchase it. You need to upgrade it. It will break, because all electronics by definition will break over time. So you have to do upgrades every few years. You have to rebudget. and that is burdensome. So the cloud relieves that on the business owner, so they don't have to worry about that. The other benefit is also the cost, right? So when you do the traditional model, if you buy stuff for yourself and make it work, it's called a capital expenditure, right? So you have to spend a lot of money, maybe thousands of dollars up front, and then you don't have to spend anything. And then when it comes time for the upgrade or the migration or whatnot, you have to spend another $5,000, for example, to do the upgrade. And those are capital expenses. The cloud is designed to just be one expense that you pay for, very predictable throughout the life of your business, so you don't have to worry about that. So that's number two. Number three is that the cloud allows you to pay for what you use. So what that means is, especially if you're at a startup, like a company that's just starting up, why buy a server if you're not sure where the company's heading, how fast you're going to grow? So you could scale, you could pay very, very little and benefit from very small fees until you find out what's happening. And then as you scale, as you add more data, as you add more users, you become more, you start paying for those extra charges or extra uses. Kind of like electricity, right? So it's, if you use more electricity, you pay more at the end of the month. And there's really, we could go into another episode, obviously, and just talk about, because really there's so many benefits. There is disaster, there's data, there's backup, improved collaboration. There's a lot of different aspects that the cloud can provide that that could be a lot of benefit to businesses. So that's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's pretty scalable and has a lower cost of entry than a more traditional technology solution for a small company. Small businesses right now are facing a lot of challenges, obviously, because we're in the middle of COVID, and there's been a lot of repercussions, obviously, because of that. Companies have a bunch of data. It seems like switching to the cloud right now might not be the best time. There's a lot going on. What's the process like of getting into the cloud? If a small business wanted to make the switch right now, is that really intensive? Is it going to slow my operation down? Is it something we need to plan for? Are there better times to transition? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, if somebody's considering going to the cloud, it's definitely something that needs to be studied, right? Just like shopping for a house, right? I mean, maybe it's not as a big of an investment. It's a lot smoother than buying a house, because a house is a big expense. But just like anything, you're trying to buy something, you want to make the right decision for your business. So usually the transition is, first of all, I think you just got to identify what cloud is important to you. And there's competing clouds. And I'll give you an example. For example, Microsoft Office 365 is a cloud, right? And and Microsoft is booming because the cloud is booming because it's so much in demand because it provides so much benefit. So Microsoft Office 365 is a cloud. And then, but you got to look at competitors. You got to say, okay, there's Office 365. There's even G Suite. Google G Suite is a competitor. So you just got to kind of sit back and think, how does my company work? What's important to me, my employees, and how we work, and identify what that is. And then once you do that, how do you get there? So to answer your question, you get there really by, I think it depends on the complexities of your business. So a lot of traditional firms that we work with, right, like law firms and accounting firms and things like that, what they do is they have files, a lot of files that a lot of employees work with. And for those, you could, if you have no technical savviness to migrate yourself to the cloud, you could definitely hire somebody that could do it for you. Kind of like hiring somebody to fix your kitchen sink, right? You may be able to do it and learn how to do it, but just because your time is so worthwhile to be doing other things, you might want to hire a company that will migrate you. They will evaluate what you have. They will cover all that for you, and then they will help you migrate. That's usually a good option for businesses.
Okay. So once they migrate, then technically their data is not on site anymore. There's no more servers in the office. We've eliminated a lot of hardware, bulky hardware. Isn't that a concern for people sometimes, that their data is not on site? Like, once the data leaves, do they lose access to that? What if they want to get their data back? Like, what happens to the data?
Very good question. Yes, it is definitely a concern, and it has always been a concern. So when the cloud, it started becoming, or the internet started becoming commonplace to like everybody, a lot of companies had access to move to the cloud, but a lot of them didn't. It was this big hesitation from companies that they just weren't sure what to expect. The idea of relinquishing control of your data was such a scary thing for a lot of companies because, okay, what if we don't have access to our data? What is this cloud anyways? And also it was a mystery. It's like, what is the cloud, right? Like, how does that even work? When you don't understand something, sometimes you kind of steer away from it. So yeah, it's definitely a concern. But I would say it should not be a concern, especially at this point in time. We have reached such maturity in cloud solutions and cloud services that it should not be. Obviously, everybody in every company needs to do their due diligence, right? They need to, because there are so many clouds, they're vendors. And just like you shop for anything, you got to, number one, trust the vendor and make sure the vendor is reputable. They know what they're doing. Screen them. Microsoft is obviously a reputable company, so their cloud is good. Amazon Web Services, Dropbox. There's other, even more specialized cloud services. So you may not hear the name sometimes of a cloud service. So definitely interview them, talk to the people, and understand. And that's once you build that trust, and once you should definitely take that leap and explore that option.
Okay. And this is relatively newer technology, and we're talking about migrating data, and there's data centers. Is this an expensive thing to do? I know small businesses are obviously running lean right now. It's been a tough year for everybody. Is this going to be a major expense, to make this transition? What does it look like from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's like when should a company really invest in the cloud? And I think, because here's the truth. The truth is, yes, you're getting all those benefits of the cloud, but there is an expense, right? You have to pay that service for the cloud, which you might say, oh, why should I do that? And I think the answer is, it really depends on your business, right? So if you feel that the benefits that you're going to get, by not worrying about hardware and all that stuff is actually going to save you money, right? It's going to save you time, and your time is so valuable, especially as a professional. You don't want to be messing around with hardware, troubleshooting, helping your employee, all that. You just want things to run smoothly, and you are looking for a smooth operation because you're growing and you are so focused and you're so honed in on what you do. I think the cloud at that point becomes very compelling.
You talked a little bit kind of about performance. How does the cloud compare with like having things on site, having servers in your office in terms of speed, downloads, just the user experience? Is there any difference between the cloud and what people are traditionally used to?
I would say, yes, there is. So the data is definitely farther away from you, especially in a traditional setup for a firm. So what would happen is the data is far away, but the access is the difference is so minuscule that it doesn't, because the internet speeds today are super fast, right?
You can't tell the difference.
You can't really tell the difference, but yes, there is a difference, and it's very, very minimal.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what if a company already has like in-house, they've got servers on site and they've got some IT people, maybe they outsource IT, but they've got people coming in and out every once in a while and they want to switch over to the cloud. What happens to their IT resources that they currently have?
So that's also a good question. So I think that's also like a discussion in the industry as to what the role of the, especially big companies like a CIO, who's the chief information officer, who's usually responsible, or the CTO, the chief technology officer in bigger companies. Their role used to be, to bring hardware, to set up infrastructure, to set up networks and make sure all those networks are communicating, etc. But we're talking now the things are kind of changing, right? The dynamics, the foundation of how businesses run now with their information is changing, and what that's and the roles have to change along with them. So the IT companies now, they become more reliant on the cloud. So they should be able to navigate the cloud better. They should understand the cloud and the benefits of the cloud and talk about the cloud. They should also understand the local setups and on-premises and computers and endpoints. So there's definitely a role to play for the IT companies, but it's going to be probably more blended in with cloud.
So there could be some cost savings realized there as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely things that the cloud is doing that the IT people used to do, which is infrastructure and setting up servers. So you don't need to set up servers anymore, right? Because everything is essentially now servers still, but they're hidden. And that's what makes the cloud. They're servers that are hidden. The IT guy doesn't have to update it.
And you don't need to have somebody on site if there's any issue with data that can be handled remotely.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things about the cloud is that you don't need the IT person to be on site as much anymore, right? So their role has changed. You still need their support, but a lot of it has been just kind of offloaded to the cloud, and the cloud is just doing its magic, which is making your data available to you.
Yeah. So you hear a lot of talk about the cloud and its impact on small businesses and kind of how it's changing the way companies are working. And you hear terms floating around like as a service, right? There's desktop as a service. There's different services that are now available to businesses through the cloud that weren't available before. Can you explain a little bit about those acronyms and what as a service kind of implies and the benefits that is affording, these companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a service is a phenomena that started popping up after the cloud became prevalent, and as a service is basically something that you have, for example, software as a service, and you can see it. Sometimes you see the acronym SaaS or DaaS, which is desktop as a service, or IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service.
And there's PaaS.
And there's PaaS, platform as a service. And those are kind of just like umbrella names, but I'll give you a good example of software as a service. So, which a lot of companies a lot of our listeners are familiar with, which is Microsoft Office. So Microsoft Office, traditionally, what you would do is you would buy the software, install it in your computer, and you're done. And that's called a perpetual license. You don't have to pay anything extra. You pay maybe a few $100 at the beginning. You install it in your computer, and that's it. That's called a perpetual license. And then you have the other option, which is you have a subscription license, where you pay a lot less monthly, and then you get the same product, right? So that's as a service. So that's software. You're getting the software as a service, so you're paying monthly fees for it. Now, what are the benefits between the two, right? So one is stale. Okay, you bought it, capital expenditure up front, and then you hold it for life if you want.
But when it needs to get upgraded,
exactly,
you need to buy another product.
Yes, exactly. You're gonna have to rebuy, kind of like with the server, right? You have to
download it,
reinstall it, check compatibility issues, etc. The as a service just automatically upgrades. And you get the latest features instantly. So they can, do a bug fix. You don't have to wait until the new iteration of the software to be downloaded. You just, boom, you open up and it's just pushed while you're sleeping and then you open up the new software and it's upgraded. Yeah, so you never have to upgrade your software.
So the subscription model really kind of saves companies, small businesses especially, from having to pony up a lot of money up front. Again,
and frustration.
Or software.
Yeah.
And
gives them a lot of predictability. I think the predictability for a small business is very important. Just it streamlines the flow of the workforce and dodges surprises. So there's no more surprises like in the middle of the day something happening, or we have to do an upgrade. We come across issues. So all of that hopefully just goes away.
Okay, so transitioning into the cloud is not an issue. The cost is really not an issue. The data being offsite is not really an issue. What about security? Security is a huge issue right now. You hear about ransomware and malware attacks that are on the rise. And a lot of people with bad intentions are spending time sitting at home on their computers trying to wreak havoc on small companies and their data. Are clouds safe? Can't they be hacked more easily than a server that would be in an office? Talk to me about the security, because that's obviously a huge concern.
Yeah. That's a very good question, and it's definitely a big concern. I mean, we've seen it, right? We talk about incidents that happen with clients, and some clients even come to us, right, with issues that happened, and then they start considering and evaluating different models that could work for them better. So here's the concern. The concern of malware, and let's be clear, malware could infect a traditional company, and it could infect even a cloud, right? Let's get that out of the way. But here's where it's different. A cloud company, is their focus and their sole job is to make sure your data is safe, your data is available. That's it, right? So they are specialized at making sure you don't get any malware, you don't get, your data is always backed up, so that's always an important thing. If you're managing all those security and malware and you're trying to fight that, and those malwares evolve just like the COVID virus evolves, those malwares also evolve. There's people always, it's like a chase between people fighting malware and the malware itself, and they're always trying to outpace each other as far as techniques of circumventing things. So if your job is to be a lawyer or an accountant or a financial advisor or whatnot, why would you want to worry about fighting and protecting your information day to day and worry about it? Just offload that to a professional cloud service that knows how to manage your data and protect your data. So
we talked a little bit about cost, data access, data security, kind of the basics of the cloud and the benefits of the cloud to small businesses. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, obviously, that we're in the middle of a huge pandemic that's having a massive impact on companies. I just read in Forbes, like as many as 4 million small businesses might be out of work, shutting doors by the end of the year. Like, this is no joke. It's not going away. Why does the cloud make sense during this pandemic more than ever?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it does. It does make a lot of sense. And I'll give you a good example of why it does. So we have, for example, we've seen firms that, because nobody can no longer come to the office, the office lease, and we don't know how long this is going to last. I mean, we're in Los Angeles right now. There's another lockdown that was issued today. So we don't know, and a lot of companies don't know how long this lockdown is. So lease is becoming less important to them, and it's an expenditure that they have to do every month.
They're paying for office space.
They're paying for office space, and which they can't use, and it's expensive. It's one of the biggest expenses that you have at in any firm. So the cloud allows you to work and collaborate easier between your workers and your employees. So you could
everyone's working remotely.
Yeah, everybody's working remotely. So you could really just drop the lease, even possible, and then just go all cloud. And I think there's a big transition to that happening. So that's definitely one of the benefits. Obviously, there's tools like Zoom and things like that. Those are all cloud-based services that could be leveraged to help remote work. So I would put it at that. Yeah.
All right. Well, it obviously seems to me like there's a lot of benefits right now for small businesses switching into the cloud. I appreciate you clearing up some of my confusion, and hopefully our listeners found this information valuable as well. I will say this is our first podcast. If you like it and you're watching us on YouTube, I would encourage you to give us a thumbs up. Click on the bell icon so that you'll get alerted when we're going to have our next episode, and look forward to more small technology information and support on our next podcast. Thanks for listening.